Yo, what is up, guys? Right before the video starts, I would like to mention I have a Discord. Make sure you join that for updates and things, as it says. And I'm also going to be doing another giveaway at 400 subs, so make sure you subscribe and do all that. I think we are like 70 away, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. I don't know how much I'm going to do. Maybe 500, 600, who knows? But yeah, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the thingy. Yo, what is up, guys? I'm back, and yeah, basic tuning tutorial video. Let's get into it. Okay, so this video is just gonna go over the basics. It's not going to go over the all fancy stuff, like the unspring weight and the fancy suspension stuff. We're not gonna go into that. I'm gonna go over the basic stuff. If you want a video on that, go for it and leave a comment. And most of it doesn't matter too much, but yeah, let's get into it. So, first thing you're going to see, wheel alignment. I've done a video explaining what this is. Go check that out. Should be the camper tutorial. Weight and CG. The only thing that really matters here is the weight and the width, height, and length. You can find this out by measuring your car using a brick. So, for instance, take a brick. Go to the model, surface, studs, this, just make it small, make it really long, and then you just count them up, measure the length, width, and height, and you're done for that part. We're going to be skipping unspring weight, and yeah, here we got suspension. I'm not going to go over suspension in this tutorial because there's a lot to cover, but yeah, if you want a video on suspension, tell me, I'll do it. Steering. Someone was asking, okay, next is steering. Someone was asking about how to do an angle kit. Well, this is how. This basically changes how much your wheels turn. So, for instance, let's say we set this to 20. Make sure you do it for both of them, the steer inner and outer. So let's say we test this and we set it to 20. You're only going to have a steering angle of 20. So you turn, you barely turn. Let's say you want to change it so that you could turn really wide. You'd set that to like 85 maybe, who knows? And once you test it, you'll notice that you can turn really far. So yeah, that's that. This also changes the speed of which you steer. So if we set this to like 0.9, you'll steer super fast. Like so. Like so. Look how fast you steer. I wouldn't really make it super duper fast, but you can if you want. Steer decay. The higher this number, the better you steer whenever you're going super fast. So this is super good for drifting and stuff. Make sure this number is reasonably high if you're drifting. Otherwise, if it's for like a normal street car, keep the number kind of low. That way you don't just veer off the road. Okay, next we have a steering gyro. We're not going to go into that, so we're going to skip that. Engine. This is basically your engine stats. So this is your horsepower. Y'all probably should know what that is. This is how much horsepower your car is making. Idle RPM. This is what the it sits at. So I'd like to keep this from like 800 to like 1200. Don't go any higher than that. And then peak RPM, and then red line. Your peak should, for the most part, be a little less than your red line. Don't go over 10,000 because that's kind of like unreal. And EQ point, don't need to go into that. And same thing with peak sharpness and curve. Incline compensation. I'm not going to go into that. Oh, by the way, you can also read what they do. But you can find that out for yourself. But I'm just not going to explain it. Rev accel. Basically, whenever the clutch is off and you're not driving, this decides how fast it's bumping. So let's say we set this to like 70, and then we try to rev. You see how slow that is? That's very slow. But let's say we set it to like 300. Now when we test it, you see it's much faster. Also, it's the same thing with the rev decay. If you make the number higher, it'll decay faster. So, yeah. Rev bounce, not going to go into that. Idle throttle, not going to go into that. Not going to go into that. Drivetrain. Differential settings, not going to go into that. Traction control settings. Basically, this determines if you have traction control on or not. I'm just going to leave this false, but you can look into this yourself. Transmission, I wouldn't change anything here because semi is the way to go. I wouldn't really mess with manual or automatic. You can if you want. So let's say we set it to auto. It should change it to automatic. So let's try it. There you go, it's automatic. So it'll shift for you. And if you set it to manual, you'll have to use the clutch. Once again, I don't really recommend that kind of stuff, but you can change it if you want. Automatic settings, I wouldn't mess with this, once again, unless you're using automatic, but if you are gonna use automatic, I still wouldn't touch it. And now we have gear ratios. Gear ratios are probably one of the most important things to change on your car, like if you're like tuning it. So let me just go into a little bit of detail on this. So basically, you have your gears 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's just for this chassis. If you want to get rid of a gear, for example, you delete it, all of it, like that, and boom. Now you have only 5 gears now. So let's say we go back in. Here, we only have 5 gears. We only go up to 5. See, like I'm upshifting, nothing. But let's say we want to add a 7th gear. We copy this, then we go over here, paste, hit enter, delete it again, enter. I don't know why I actually pasted that there, but then just change it to the next number. So there you go. You got yourself a 7th gear. So if we go in and test it, you'll have 7 gears. There you go. You got your 7 gears. That's how to change your gearing. Like your amount of gears. Now let's go into the actual gearing. So first off, we have final drive. Final drive is basically the entire like ratio of all your gears. So the higher this number, the lower your gear ratios. The lower the number, the lower the gear ratios. And basically what gear ratios are is like how many times the wheel spins for one time the motor spins. So basically, if you want your car to, man, this is really hard to explain, but basically it's exponential as it goes down, which basically means changes become more great as you go down the list. So neutral should always stay 0. And basically, I like to keep my first gear really higher. So let's just say we make this 3.8. Here, actually, hold on. Let me do one thing before we test this out. I'm gonna set it to a lower horsepower so that you can kind of see. So let's set it to 100 horsepower for this test. So let's say we have it at a higher gear ratio, like 3.8. It'll be very easy to shift to 1, like shift into first gear. But let's say you have it kind of low, so let's say like 2.5. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, or it should be. It's going to require more engine power. So it doesn't because this what you call it. a rear-wheel drive car, but let me try and change it to all-wheel drive so you can kind of see. So let's put it like 3.5 for now for the first gear, and let's test it like that. So I'm sorry this is kind of hard to understand because like this is like a hard thing to like explain. So if we start in neutral and we shift up and we start driving, it's super easy to like get into that gear. But let's say we put it in this like 2.5, a lower number. It's going to be a relatively more difficult in order to shift up. Oh my god, I don't know why it's not even like The point is, make sure you kind of like, I don't know, you're just going to have to play with this. Higher the gear, the easier it is to shift. Lower the number, the harder it is like shift. So like the bigger difference. Whatever. Next, we have brakes. Basically, we have ABS. If you have ABS, it'll help you brake. You keep it false whenever you're drifting because you don't really brake when you're drifting. You use a handbrake like skirt. Yeah, you can use it if you want for other builds. I'm not really going to go into... Wait, no, I will go into this stuff. Okay, so brake force. This is how hard you brake. So let's say we have front brake force, we have rear brake force, and then we have handbrake force. So let's say the higher the number, the stronger the braking is. So right now these are set to 1500. If we try and brake with them, we're going to stop instantly if we just hold S. Like that, our wheel stopped. But let's say we have it set to a lower number. Like 500. If we set it to 500, it's going to take much longer to stop the car. So we get up to speed, then we brake, we're braking, and we stop. So as you can see, it takes a lot longer to stop than a higher number. P-brake should just be set really high all the time because whenever you hit the handbrake, you want it to lock. But yeah, that's basically it for that part. You can forget this stuff down here. Default controls. Now we're getting into the controllers. You don't have to touch this stuff because this is for mouse steering and controller steering. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. You don't need to know. Keyboard controls. Now this is where it's like interesting. So let's say you want to change your like controls. So let's see. Shift up. Let's say we want to make it J. I'll make sure it's all capital. And maybe your downshift is L. So whenever you're driving, you use J and L instead. So you have your both hands on the board, so that way you don't have to have one hand doing all the work. You drive, press J, and then you got your driving. I prefer this. That's my main control whenever I'm like toge racing, but you can do whatever you want. So that's basically how you use the controls and things. And we're at the end of the list, so that's basically all the tuning stuff that I'm going to cover. So if you liked the video, yeah, that's cool. Thanks. I'm gonna have to edit this like a madman, because editing stinks. But yeah, I hope you like this. Finally got this video out, and yeah, I'll see you.